So it's Saturday night of the Knoxville Nationals. I can't record from the Hall of Fame because they're not open yet. So our internet connection pretty much dicked us up there on our first attempt to start this up. Dom, you're flying out to Washington, so that's why we had to do this early today. We're joined by Master Gasser, Steve Thornton. We'll be calling him Steve for the rest of the live show. Dom, what do you think of last night's racing?
I thought the main event was probably the best track that we've seen all weekend, like including 360 Nationals, including the Sunday night show. I felt like it was pretty good. Obviously, it was the first night we didn't have rain really, so that probably helped tremendously. Gravel was really good. I'll tell you right now, Buddy Kofoid was in a complete different dimension. He was rocket ship fast. Um, Damn, how shitty is that for Madsen? I mean, he's locked in for sure, no questions, and then out of fuel with a couple to go. What a terrible feeling. Um, there were some huge crashes. And I had something else I really wanted to hit on, and obviously I forgot because I'm old. But fuck, there was something that I really wanted to hit on. I'm sure it'll come to me. But yeah, I mean, it kind of played out how I thought it would. But hats off to Cole Macedo for making his first Knoxville Nationals. And I don't even remember who ran fourth. Pittman ran fourth. Ashton Torgerson did a hell of a job. Oh, and Donnie
Steve,
looked
what were
like
your
shit.
Steve, what were your thoughts from last night?
I agree with Dom. I thought the track was really good last night. I was really impressed with Buddy Kofoid. When he was in the B main, I thought there was no chance that he was going to make the A. And I think he was the best car in the A main. Honestly, I think a couple more laps, he probably could have had something for gravel. The biggest takeaway I had from last night was I think we need to do something about the blend rule because with what was going on with Kerry, clearly he was having a fuel pickup issue or something, and then I think he could have just junked a bunch of cars on the restart, and it's the biggest race of the year, and I just don't think we can be playing games with stuff like that.
Just for the record, Kerry did an interview after the race. He was not out of fuel. He had an issue with his throttle braking, and sounded like he said his throttle pedal broke, but maybe it was a throttle issue. And then he said,
That's what
on top of that, he ended up having a steering issue as well on the second attempt to go.
I
Uh,
think he has the worst luck out of anyone.
The
I
battery was out of fuel.
um, we have a long history of letting these guys that are limping around stay in for restarts, and as long as we have a cone, it's a pretty dumb idea. I can remember being at World Finals years ago, and I believe it was Craig Delansky had a flat tire, and they let him restart with the flat tire, and it caused havoc. Uh, I believe we had another incident with a flat tire. I can't remember the details at all, but I can remember two guys restarting with flat tires, and both times it's been a disaster. Um, we really got to. I think Steve would like us to see us end the blend rule. I'd like to start. I'd like us to just start using some goddamn common sense. When there's a car that's limping so bad that we use a yellow, maybe we don't restart it in the middle of the field. And that
So,
driver can't be trusted to pull off. Like, the officials have to do it. These drivers have shown every single time when they're limping, they're taking the restart.
yeah, so I really wanted to touch on this. I'm glad you brought it up, Steve, because last night I was seeing everybody like, oh, fuck the blend rule. This is so stupid, blah, blah, blah. Well, it was used incorrectly last night. And the blend rule has been around for a while. I've never in my history seen it used how it was last night. I've only ever seen the blend rule used when a guy spins, when there's contact and there's a 360, and the car is able to continue to drive off as if he was going to blend into the field. You're not blending if you're slowed down. That's not a blend. That's a yellow flag. So I agree with you, Daryl, and I agree with you, Steve. Like it was just used incorrectly, and I think the blend rule is a great tool for fairness when we get a car to spin out because there are a lot of times where maybe there's contact made and the guy does a 360 and keeps going, and I don't think he should lose his spot. I think he should be able to blend back where he came forward because that could ruin someone's entire race, and we've seen it before. But the blend rule is the blend rule when a car is blending back into the field, hence the name. Not when a car is slowed down and it's like, oh, the yellow's for him. Oh, fuck, he's good. No, he's not. He's not good. The yellow was for him because he was slowing down, not because he was spinning out and there was an inadvertent yellow where everyone was going to continue going. That is exactly the guideline, and it was misused last night.
Yeah, I just think we got to be better on that. This is like three times I can think of off the top of my head where we've given the option to the driver and it's just been a disaster.
So
Uh,
I missed the Macri thing. What happened with Macri? I don't know how I missed it.
So I guess it was on the initial start, and everyone got bottled up going into one, like on the bottom. It's like four guys in the same going for the same spot. Macri ends up, I think, getting in the back of Pursley, like popping a wheelie, coming down real hard. And I'm thinking that he probably thinks something broke in the car and he's just off the pace. And they throw the caution. And then I think he realized that, nothing was broken. And he tried to go get his spot back and they sent him to the rear.
yeah, it was either
So,
that.
which
Yeah,
makes sense to me. Like he probably should have went to the rear. He did bring out the caution technically, but then the thing with Kerry Madsen happened, and it's like, well, Kerry didn't spin either, so he's got to go to the rear too.
Right. Both of those should warrant going to the back. They weren't blending back with the field.
yeah. So I don't think there's much to add on that. It's pretty basic. Like it just was really poorly executed last night. David Gravel obviously did what Gravel had to do. I know everyone's saying Kofoid was all over him. My guess is that Gravel was taking it pretty easy last night. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think so. I think he probably did what he needed to do and was, maintaining what he felt he needed to with the pace he felt he needed to. So hard to say that Buddy was so much better than him, but speed wise he was. Obviously, that's a lot different when you're out front and you're just pacing yourself. And you're trying to not, do anything stupid or put yourself in a bad position. So I'm sure both those guys are going to be able to march through the field. But one thing that I've learned racing at Knoxville, as much as I used to back in the day, was if you like the weeks leading up or the nights leading up to the Nationals, if you've got to put big runs on and you're able to do that, usually Saturday night's about the same thing. Like you can usually put a little bit of a charge together. Whereas if you're good and you kind of get in, sometimes that qualifying speed doesn't equate out to being able to drive through the field. So I could see Buddy doing a big charge on Saturday or today.
Yeah. The other thing I think I just remembered that Dom probably thought of was Sammy Swindell was probably the thing you forgot when you're
That's
bringing up your
exactly what
shit.
I forgot. Dude, I've never been a huge Sammy guy. Oh my god, I was in love. Like his interviews this week have been great.
Yeah, I've not been a Sammy guy at all, and his two interviews are just like, "Thank you, Sammy, you're the
Yeah,
best." Uh,
Yes, Sammy's been awesome this week, and
you've got
honestly, like shockingly fast.
yeah.
Like really, really impressive.
yeah, yeah, you've got like David Gravel trying. Like, I'd like to ask you guys more about this. You got David Gravel kind of trying to be the villain, and then you just watch Sammy get interviewed, and it's like that's what a villain is. A villain is a
Yeah,
guy that just calls out another guy just blatantly. Is like, I could kick your ass if I was in your car. That's a
That's why he's the best. That's why
yeah,
he's Sammy. I mean, Slamming
yeah.
Sammy, he knows the part, and God bless David for trying because I think it's really cool that he wants to wear the black hat. But I just I don't think David has it in him to be the bad guy.
I
Um,
don't think David wants to be disliked. I think this is a misplay.
yeah,
I agree. It feels so unnatural.
Like David is so active on social, he's so active on everything. That's to be liked. It's not to be disliked.
yeah,
He's
right.
trying. So then, when you're seeing these things happen, like you can't pull it off because it's not like, oh, we try to pull it off. Like you either can or you can't. That's the evidence last night. Sammy isn't trying to be the bad guy or the full. He just is,
Yeah, he's just doing
and
it.
yeah, and
It's like Reitzel. Reitzel, he can do it. He figured it out.
Yeah, but
Reitzel doesn't
again,
even have social media, and he's and still the villain. It's
yeah,
hilarious.
but he's not trying either. That's Reitzel. Like if you saw him, like he knows he's gonna get boozed for shit that he's saying, but it's still the shit he would say or do. Like with Gravel, it's not natural. I think he should just go back. Like I just, yeah, I don't know. I think we're trying to pigeonhole him into the role of the villain, and it doesn't really
I
work.
think he should just put his head down and win 10 more races this year and win a second championship, and then what? People
Yeah,
can't say shit.
yeah. Like that's the way he pisses people off. He
Yeah.
kicks their ass. That's how he pisses
Yeah.
people off.
Honestly, everyone would forget about this shit anyways. Like if you just race to the end of the year and you're, the good guy or whatever again, like everyone's gonna forget about it anyway. They're just gonna boo you for winning. I agree, Steve. Like it, I don't think it fits him just because, like, from what I know of David, he's not a bad guy. He's not the bad guy. So it'd be like trying to make me the quiet, cute, you know, little, flower of a girl I am. It just wouldn't
Yeah,
work.
yeah, perfect. And then Steve, did any numbers jump out at you last night? Was there anything that happened that was crazy that didn't really make sense?
Justin Sanders didn't make sense to me. And honestly, I'm not super shocked he struggled. I think, his prelim night, like he showed signs of speed here and there. And I think it was just like a lot of other guys, he just fell victim to the format. And then last night, I think he went out almost last in his group. And, it was just he was behind the eight ball from there. So like when I was doing projections and stuff, like Sanders, even though he doesn't have a ton of laps at Knoxville, it just kind of made sense for him and that car to be in the top 20, or I guess top 30. And I thought he would be much better, but he's really been slow. Well, I guess not slow, but just not as good as I thought he was going to be. One person who's doing much better than the numbers is Dason Pursley, and I don't think that's surprising to anyone. I just think that being his first year in a wing 410, like he really kind of struggled at Eldora, he struggled at Knoxville, but this weekend, I guess starting with the Cappy, like he's been really really fast, and like I said, I don't think it's a huge surprise to anyone, but this is definitely the best weekend he's had at Knoxville.
So the one number you had that surprised me that didn't surprise me, it wasn't really a number. A lot of your predictions are based on numbers. You had Carson McCarl as like one of your four guys. You were like, can you take us through kind of like how you get to those numbers? Like how you get, you don't have to tell us your exact formula, but kind of what are you basing it on?
So for the Knoxville Nationals, I obviously historical data matters a lot, but I think it's really important to kind of, definitely look at what's happening, this year, and then look at what's happened in the last 2 years, to really kind of get an idea of like where people are at right now. Carson McCarl, I think I'm gonna bring it up, but I'm pretty sure he in every race at Knoxville this year, his average time trial position is like 9.9, I want to say. So he's had like 3 or 4 times where he's timed in the top five. He's passed cars in every feature except three, I think. So he's going forward in every single A main except 3 times this year at Knoxville. So usually when you look at the full breakdown of who gets in, a couple Knoxville guys usually sneak in. It's just the hardest thing to do is try to find out who it actually is. This year I chose JJ over Carson in the final predictions, even though Carson on paper looked much better to actually make it. Um, so really what I base that off of is it's so hard to compare Carson McCarl to like, a national touring guy who doesn't run at Knoxville all the time. So you kind of have to just, you know, put more weight into the local Knoxville stuff during nationals, in my opinion, just because these guys have so many more laps there. And for like Carson McCarl, JJ Hickle, Caleb Johnson, like I kind of all had them in like the same exact boat where it's like if they hit the pill draw right, if they go out and lay down a good lap, They might be able to sneak into their prelim and then probably be in a position that like Chris Wyndham is in right now or the last lock-in car. So that's kind of what I look at when I'm doing this stuff.
So, what has been? I'm assuming Jack Anderson is probably the one you've probably been the most wrong on, probably number wise, because I think all you really have for him would have been like a top five run that ended in a crash. So I'm guessing he's the statistical anomaly that's up front.
He definitely is. I think like what I wrote about him is that he obviously being a rookie, super inconsistent. He'll have nights down there where he'll go out in time, right around the top 10 or something. And then the next week he'll go out there and be 30th. So it was just so hard to try to put him somewhere. I did put him on my deep dives list with Cam Martin. So I felt pretty good about that. But no, ultimately at the end, like I think I put Jack Anderson in my D main, like just because he wasn't the guy I chose to benefit from the pill draw.
So I need you to work on a stat. It's a stat that I think would be really, really telling. I started doing it 2 years ago, but I haven't come up with it. And like sports, so baseball especially has like a wins above replacement stat. So like, how good are you compared to the average person at your position? You're a guy that does not want the format change, correct?
Correct.
I want a wins above replacement for how each person in the 75 or whatever pills it is does. So when a guy draws a 63, what I want to know at the end of the night how good his performance was compared to everybody else that draws a 63. I think that would be a really, really badass stat that would tell you, did a guy have a good nationals or not? Like, did this guy overachieve? Now, I started doing it, but it was I don't have a databasing background. I'm not the best at like tracking down all that kind of stuff, but I think that would be like the most incredible stat for the Knoxville Nationals is to just be able to look at it and say like, okay, you drew a 56. The last five Knoxville 360 and 410 Nationals say the guy that drew the 56 gets to here. I think that would be probably the ultimate stat. I think for the Nationals. Do you agree with that?
I agree. I have pill draw stuff from it's kind of hard to get the exact pill number, like so you kind of just have to do it off qualifying order, which
This is what I did. I
you know,
did it. I was
yeah,
starting
yeah.
it off qualifying order.
Yeah, so like I have stuff, and I do look at that when I'm doing these previews just to get an idea of who kind of could benefit from it or who has benefited from it in the past. But honestly, like I think looking at it like just from last year, like I think Matt Jewell is a good example. Like he went out first and then timed first, and then he was ultimately didn't make the A. Like I think he was a B main lock in and then fell just short of making the A last year, I believe. So it is kind of like I think obviously going out early is the data is going to tell you that it's a good thing, but I do think that it's not as bad as people think.
Well,
I
I
think
look
it's
at it
yours.
like gravel. If you're an elite guy, the pill draw is not going to hurt you as bad as a regular Joe. Like if I'm going out first, probably going to have a good shot at making the Knoxville Nationals. If I'm going out 48th, probably not going to make the Knoxville Nationals off my prelim night. And I think that when you look at like David went out late, qualified well. He was going to lock in. Like without that crash with Hunter, I mean he's in. So I do think that there is fall off. There's no question about that. But the bottom is kind of the savior, like we talked the other day. Like, when that lane on the bottom is still there, a good guy can still go out there and rip one of the two laps good and get himself in position. Maybe that's
Justin
20th.
Henderson did it last night.
Yeah, exactly. Like, few
JJ
guys
did it
can,
last
but there
night.
are guys that can.
Yep.
Yeah, JJ last night went out super super late, and I kind of wanted to get in on this one. I thought a lot of crews didn't do their job last night in terms
I
of tell.
literally texted one of my friends and was like, "Why are people not screaming at their drivers to run the bottom, like, or at least try to hit the bottom one of the laps?"
Yeah,
Because
like
there were so many guys who just went out and hit the top two laps in a row and were so slow.
yeah, like it got established. I want to say fairly early in time trials that if you wanted to lay a lap, you had to run low in 1 and 2 and high in 3 and 4. That got, and I couldn't believe once that got established how many guys didn't do it. And then that got established almost all through time. Like, honestly, being honest, and this might cause trouble, Buddy Kofoid's qualifying effort was piss poor. It had long been determined that he needed to be on the bottom in 1 and 2. And the whole reason he started back there is because they ripped 2 around the top. That
Yep.
was that was completely on them, if you want me to be honest. I don't think their car was slow. They ran a good lap for someone that ran the wrong part of the racetrack.
Yeah.
And JJ's lap, I'm going to be honest, I was throwing my hands up going, JJ, everybody's tried to run the bottom and they're slow as shit in 3 and 4. And then JJ goes fourth quick and not a single guy repeats it. Now, Dom, you know this. When something like that happens, there's usually a delay because the next 2 to 6 guys are already in line and their crew can't get back to them. But literally no one reacted to it. Not one guy after JJ went fourth quick went to the bottom. And I thought that was really, really weird given today's you give the driver the phone, they watch time trials, you've got a guy usually watching. Man, that was shocking to me that in such an important race, so many guys, and I think it was that they were oblivious that to what the actual quick line was. It was very shocking to watch, especially when good teams did it. Dom, can you
It's
kind of
weird.
take people through the process of what happens there and why, like, basically what happens when you're sitting in line and figuring out where to run?
Yeah, it's really weird to me because like at Knoxville, when you're in the push off lane there, you can kind of see the entry to one when you're on that first row, like getting ready to go. But before, you can only kind of tell like where that guy's entry is. Like, oh, he's angling to the bottom, or oh, this guy's ripping the top. And like usually I would have somebody sitting there with me like
Yes.
the whole time, and it'd just be like, yeah, gotta go top or whatever. And I remember I can't remember if it was the Capitani or if it was Hard Knocks night. It was one of them. But we went out really late, and it was one lap qualifying. And I've said this story just a week ago, I think, but I remember there was a couple guys that went good on the bottom earlier, and then everyone else kind of gave up on it and was ripping the top. But like every once in a while, you get a guy that was willing to take the risk, and they bang off a lap. And we're sitting there, and Lasowski's like, if you want to make the Knoxville Nationals or you want to make the Capitani, whatever one it was, he goes, you're going to run a lap around the bottom. Like, you got to hit the bottom and you got to nail it. So I'm like, all right, fuck it. Bam, roll in, nail the bottom of 1 and 2, nail the bottom of 3 and 4. And I'm like, that probably wasn't good enough. If I was going to have 2 laps to be any good, I'd need to clean them up. But we only had 1 lap, and so many guys were like, the easy route is the cushion. It's easier to just get up against it on the right rear and just make a clean, smooth lap. A lot of times it could be 3/4 of a second slower, a half second slower. But there's a big risk because if you miss the bottom, you are done. You're fucked. And I remember we hit it, and we were like fourth quick or something like that. And I'm like, well, there you go. Now you're in the game. But if you don't do it, that's why I think that if you want to make the Knoxville Nationals, you have to be good around the bottom. Like you have to at some point be good around the bottom. You can't just go there. Very rarely can you see a guy go there and just go, hey, I'm going to run every lap of the weekend on the top.
Except for Cole Macedo last night, who proudly got out of the car and said, fuck the bottom.
Yeah, except for Cole Macedo. Cole, a lot of times I don't think knows there is a bottom. He's so good on the curb, like he's like, fuck that, I'm just gonna
That's what he
do my
said in
shit
that
over.
video. That video is going to be passed around
Yeah.
social media for
Yeah, if
years.
he doesn't
Yeah.
have a if he doesn't have a fuck the bottom T-shirt printing right now, he's a fool.
I'll
Or
have to do
fuck
that first.
bottom.
That way he can copy me.
Yeah. Oh, Dom gets the zinger in. um, but no, I thought time trials was very weird, and I did wonder how much of that goes on. But like you say, Dom, when the bottom is such a savior, I can't believe there's not more guys that focus on being able to run it. Like, I don't know how it is for you, but like I'm by the way, I'm standing with Sam as he pushes out with the phone. Like we're trying to find out to the last second where we need to be. Uh, But literally, our whole thing when we draw late numbers, we're literally watching every single guy that runs the bottom and like gauging it from there. Like that's the whole savior. Do you think a
Yeah.
lot of guys were scared to run the bottom? Because typically 1 and 2 is harder to run than the bottom 3 and 4. Do you think that was the? Do you think guys were scared to do it? And could you explain
Yeah.
why 1 and 2 is harder than 3 and 4 to run on the bottom?
Yeah, no, that's definitely what it is. I mean, it's so much easier to run the top. So, like when you're sitting there, and I mean, that's the conversation that's being had, right? Like they're probably like Buddy probably it was planned to run the top because he's probably like from his interview last night. Hey, I'm not very good around the bottom. I don't feel comfortable around the bottom. The car's not very good around the bottom. Whatever that scenario may be, let's nail two around the top. We should be better than the majority of the guys that are running the top, so that should get us good enough. And that's the thought process. And the reason 1 and 2 I feel like is harder is when you get into one is very flat, like the whole racetrack's flat, but one is very flat off of turn two and into turn one. So like when you're down there's nothing that's really helping you to where into three, like three, I feel like there's a little bit more of a gutter system. So like once you get your left front into three, you can carry more speed deeper into the corner. And then off of four, like the most banked part of the racetrack is turn four on the very bottom. That is the most banked part of the whole track. So once you get there, how I was saying yesterday, like off of two, where you're pedaling it, pedaling it, pedaling it, and you're waiting for that point off of two to be able to get both feet down and go on the bottom. Once you get past like a little bit past the apex off of four, if your car's good, you're just both feet down wide open and you're in that gutter and the thing's continuing to run. So I think that was probably why that's why you probably see a lot of guys nail four better than off of two. Um, and there's a big risk factor because turn two is usually wider than turn four. So if you miss turn two, you're going fucking way up the racetrack to get back to grip, and your whole lap's ruined. And a lot of times, your second lap is pretty much ruined because now you've got to build your momentum through three and four. So it's a lot easier. And I mean, the safe route. If I've got a guy that's a hammerhead shark and he can't roll the bottom, I'm not even gonna tell him to sniff it. I'm like, dude, until you figure out the bottom, we're qualifying around the top. Like, we're not even gonna fuck around with it.
Yeah, I've just
Yeah,
always
I think.
I've always had a different view on it. Say what you're going to say, Steve.
Well, I think it's just obvious when you see guys who are, they might be really good at other tracks and they're going to Knoxville for the first time and they won't run the bottom at all. Like Justin Whittle is a good example. I mean, not that he runs the bottom at Port Royal, but he didn't even sniff the bottom. Chase Dietz kind of is getting noticeably better on the bottom throughout the week. He really impressed me last night, but early in the week, he's just hammering the top. Like just a lot of guys who don't have a ton of Knoxville laps just are always, on the top in qualifying.
Yeah, to get back to what Dom said, and then I want to touch on what Steve said. I've always been surprised though that people just don't take their lap around the top and at least give it a shot on the bottom on lap two. Like I'm always
Yeah,
surprised when they go, okay, I'm just going both up here, because very rarely when a guy runs the top is there a lot of variance in his 2 laps times. So you might as well just take the shot at the bottom. And that was the thing I wanted to talk about when we were talking about like, there's so many times where like bravery is not realized or misunderstood in sprint car racing. Uh, to me, bravery is at Knoxville is running a time trial lap, missing the bottom, and having the balls to go back down there for your second lap. To me, that's what like bravery is at Knoxville. I think it's very different than everywhere else. The next thing I wanted to get into, Dom seems to be all over the place, but it's a question I wanted to get into is before we got to this year's Nationals, I usually help TJ Slideways do his. Usually, TJ Slideways gives me his whole field rundown, and then I'll tell him like glaring errors. And then
Hmm.
when I got his first list, Chase Dietz was super high on the list, and I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! You got to drop him." And the reason I said that is because Pennsylvania guys I find struggle when they go to Knoxville for the first time. And I asked Sam why. I remember years ago, Dylan Cisney showed up for his first one. And if I remember right, he really struggled, and I asked Sam about that. And Sam basically said what happens in PA is the guys aren't so line dependent like they are in Knoxville. Like guys from Pennsylvania can kind of just float in, and when they get grip, they're going to go. Whereas at Knoxville, it's very, very line dependent. So I feel like Pennsylvania guys really struggle at Knoxville the first time because it is such a line dependent racetrack. And I think that's why you're seeing Whittle and Dietz kind of struggle with that. Dom, would you say that's a fair thing to say?
Well, yeah, and I like one thing I was actually going to touch on this because I have a Jason Solwald tie-in to all this. But so at Knoxville, it's the only place in the country really where you enter the bottom on the bottom straight fast. Like it's very different. Like when you're running Port Royal, you're arcing the thing in on the wing. You know, the racetrack's slick, so you're backpedaling. You're slowing both rear tires down, and you're waiting on the car to hook up. When you run Chico, 99% of the time you're opening your entry up, whether there's grip or there's slick. When you're at Tulare, I mean, any racetrack in the country, you're usually opening your entry up, trying to get, you're trying to arc your entry. Whereas Knoxville, you're not. You can't arc it because the corners are so wide. If you enter with your left rear out of grip, left rear's down, you're sliding across the racetrack, you've just missed the corner. So you have to enter straight against the berm in the grip. It's unlike anywhere else. But I will tell you, I think that running the bottom at Knoxville helps you. And like guys that are good around the bottom at Knoxville are usually really good around the bottom at a lot of other places because it teaches you a different attack method when the racetrack does change. Like I remember coming off the road thinking, dude, nobody is running the bottom. Like they're all floating it in there and then they're sliding across. Like I'd stick it in, underneath a guy on the entry of the corner, and then you could roll around the bottom and drive it right off and almost move guys out of the way. And the best guy at Skagit on the bottom is Jason Solwald, and he was always really good at Knoxville on the bottom. Like a few years ago, he went there and like I say a few years ago, it's probably like 7 or 8 years ago now. He made the Capitani and ran well at the Capitani in that 18 car, and everyone's like, "Where did this guy come from?" But he from years of racing, and he was I felt like pretty good at Knoxville back when he raced, on the road. Hitting that bottom has translated into how he runs Skagit around the bottom, and he's by far better than anyone else that runs Skagit around the bottom.
And
Dom, would you say Shane Golobiec's a good example of that too?
Say that one more time.
I said, would you say that Shane Golobiec is a good example of that too?
100%. Yeah, Shane.
Yeah.
Shane was always really good at Knoxville, and he never made a nationals, but he was fantastic at the 360 nationals.
Mm-hmm.
And when he came home, I felt like from racing a little bit on the road, he would run the bottom a little bit differently, and I think that he could gain a lot of speed and maintain a lot of speed like that. There's guys out there that can learn things and then apply those tools elsewhere, and there's guys that just can't. And I feel like, not bashing Freddie Raymer at all, but like Freddie for a long time was so good at Lincoln and so good at Port, and then when he'd go to Knoxville, he would kind of struggle a little bit. Well, it is different, and then I don't think he ever figured out Knoxville well enough to be able to take those tools and go home and apply them differently. But there's times where I feel you see Lance DeWeese be able to do it, where Lance can run the bottom pretty good at Knoxville, and then he'd go home, and then you'll see him switch it up, and he just looks like he's driving the car a little differently. And I feel like that's kind of what that is.
the other thing I would say off the top of my head is until they messed with the berm at Skagit, the berm around the bottom I feel like was pretty similar to Knoxville.
It was. I used to love it because you could run the shit out of it. And then, like, it was almost transposed. Like, 3 and 4 there is a lot flatter, and then 1 and 2 is a lot more banked. So, like, once you get into 1, like, you've got to enter very low on the bottom. But you get to the apex, and it's like, all right, both feet down, and you go and you run against the bank on the very bottom. And then 3 and 4, you got to wait on it a little bit longer. But, there are some similarities with how it's laid out. But you wouldn't know that unless you knew how to run the bottom at Knoxville.
So my next question, and I've asked you this when we did our article together, and I've asked you this on the pod because I think you give an awesome answer. We've talked about why it's hard for a Pennsylvania guy to come to Knoxville. What makes it hard for Justin Sanders right now and other California guys that don't race there a lot? You always, and you forgot last time, so I'm gonna I'm going to help you with your answer. It was the length of the corners versus the straightaways.
Yes, that's exactly where I was going with it. It's so hard because like Justin, the last half mile he's been on was Knoxville. Whenever the last time he went, so we don't have any half miles out here. Calistoga is still shut down. They're working to get it back open, but Calistoga doesn't race anything like that because the corners are so much more paper clippy. So even Vegas, like Vegas is nothing close to Knoxville because the corners are nowhere near as wide. And you're in the corner for such a long time at Knoxville that it's it's so different. I don't even know how to put it into words. Like you're in the corner longer than you're going down the straightaway. So the corner is everything. You have to be in the grip. You have to be able to rotate and like I will say I'm surprised that Justin hasn't done better for this Nationals with the situation and all that stuff. But I'm not knocking him. I think the years he's had success and been good at Knoxville is simply because he's a good, talented driver, not because he's good at Knoxville. Like he just kind of does it. And I think this year it's just been more circumstantial where you've got to really, really know your way around Knoxville to make things happen. The bottom hasn't been as big of a bonus lane this year. I think it's been a little bit harder to run. It hasn't had as much speed. I think the top's been a little bit faster, a little bit easier to run at times, which I think are the reasons kind of why we're seeing things play out the way they are. I think that's why my brother the other night fucked around on the bottom too long because, usually if you give time up and make the bottom work, it's going to be a huge reward. And this year we're not seeing that. So um, I think making more guys have to run the top and taking away that bottom lane, it's putting more guys up in that lane where that's where Justin would be. Justin would be running the top. So now there's more guys he's going to have to slide. He doesn't have that option of rolling the bottom. So um, I think California guys as a whole, they either figure it out quick or they don't. And Knoxville is its own beast. And being able to learn the bottom of that racetrack is the key to everything. So I think once you take a California guy there for a little bit, they're going to figure out how to bang around the top, especially when the racetrack gets wide. But it's really qualifying and being as straight as you need to be, especially off the corners, because like qualifying at Knoxville, it's pretty much unlike anywhere else. It's so wide in the corners you're turning right off of turn 2 and off of turn 4 to not let the left side drop out. Like whenever you're at, Port Royal, like you get in the thing straight and you're following it around, well then like you get to the exit of the corner and then you start like straightening the car up to like get down the straightaway. Whereas at Knoxville, you're actually like you're turning up to because you don't want the left rear to set down at all. If the left rear sets down, you've lost your lap time. So I just think that it's so different, and it's not bigger, it's just wider, so much wider that you've got to maintain speed in places on the racetrack where you normally are trying to like get the car straight and go. And everyone says you want to make your straightaway as long as you possibly can, but not at Knoxville. Like at Knoxville, you want to keep the car as straight as you can and follow wherever moisture grip patch you're in as straight and as long as you can. Not like it doesn't make sense to run the top and then get the car straight and then get going because you're better off following your right front around the cushion all the way and then almost doing like the little hoopty back down the middle of the straightaway to maintain your speed. So it's just a different beast entirely, and nothing prepares you for Knoxville except for Knoxville.
So James asked, well, why did Ashton Torgerson do so well in his first time?
That's a great question.
It's the car. That
Yeah,
car.
There's the answer. This is going to be an unpopular. This is going to be an unpopular take because it sounds mean, but it's not. Steve is 100%.
No.
That car should be in the front 5 rows, and that is not a trash of Ashton at all. It's his first goddamn time to Knoxville. Steve is a guy that isn't really involved in the race team end. That was an easy question for Dom and I. What did you see that made you come up with that answer?
I mean, it's just like you said, it's his first time at Knoxville, and we saw it at Eldora. I mean, both times he went to Eldora. The first Outlaw show, he went quick time, and then I think blew up. So like, you didn't have anything to show for it. But then he comes back and he makes the King's Royal, and not only does he make the King Royal, he stays in the top 10 the whole race, or at least gets himself there. And honestly, when you watch the 1A at Knoxville, and I'm not there this weekend, so it's hard to say for me not being at the track. But when you watch it on TV, like Dom was kind of just explaining, like at other tracks when you're straight coming out of the corners, like coming down the straightaway, that 1A looks so much more stable than other cars in qualifying, even in the heat races. Like Ashton's driving the hell out of that thing, and honestly, he probably should have crashed a couple times. But I think that car is just so good right now that like coming down the straightaway, like like for me, it's hard to explain, like just by watching it on TV. But it looks like it just has so much more grip, like coming out of the turns, and he can get back on the throttle quicker than other people can. And where it kind of looks like he's about to, maybe lose the position if he misses the bottom or something, he can almost gain that speed back, by the time they get to turn one or turn three.
Yeah, and to add to that, like the perfect example is how many times have we seen Donnie miss the bottom? Never. You don't see it. Last night, we saw it. In the main event, he was missing the bottom. That, like, the last lap, I think coming to the white flag where Ashton and Pittman slid each other, Donnie missed the bottom off 4. That doesn't happen ever in any world. Does he miss the bottom? Donnie Schatz doesn't miss the bottom. But he did. Ashton didn't. Ashton doesn't miss the bottom. Like, he rolls in there, and his entry looks a little wonky compared to guys that kind of know it. But the car has grip. Once he's in the grip, oh my God, off he goes. So Ashton's doing a fine job. I'm not knocking the kid at all. He's doing a fantastic job. And as long as that partnership stays around, he's going to continue to build and grow. But, I mean, that race car is a top 10 race car in the country any day of the week, no matter where you go, no matter what you do. And we saw it with Tanner Holmes. Tanner Holmes got in it, and he was lights out fast. I mean, better than we've ever seen him. I just think that that car is so good that, it's pretty impressive.
I would
he
say
was even really good at Peebly.
I would say, and I think you guys will agree with this. There's two guys with faster cars than they're running. One is Torgerson, and both guys I don't blame. The other guy I think is Sanders. I don't think Sanders is doing a bad job. I think the 87 is fast, but just from talking to Sanders a little bit at Knoxville and just from racing it with Aaron, I think Aaron's car is very, very, very tailored towards Aaron's driving style right now. And I think that's a lot of the reason you're seeing Sanders struggle is we talked about at Vegas, like he thought that was the best car he's ever run in his life just in those couple of laps at Vegas. But I think Aaron's probably so specialized at Knoxville and probably has the feel so down for him. I think that's the real reason why you're seeing Sanders struggle. Steve,
Yeah,
give us.
I hope that I hope he's able to drive the car in California with high limit, because that'll be the telltale. Justin's the best guy on the West Coast right now, second to Trey maybe. I mean, I feel like those two guys are pretty interchangeable. But I think that Justin would probably do a lot of damage out here on the West Coast with that car.
Yeah, Steve, take us off on another topic here. We're too early, so we don't have a lot of people asking questions in the chat. Most people are just telling us it's too early and that we look sleepy, mostly because I do. But take us in a direction here.
I got a good one. Do we think that Chris Windom locks in from the pole?
That's hard.
I can obviously tell you.
I would have been. Go ahead.
I can tell you. Okay, Sam and I are starting 7th. Sam and I have stared at that lineup from the moment we were 7th, and have been trying to figure out what our pathway is to making the Nationals. And like, okay, who are you going to pass? Who's going to be tough? And he's our hardest guy. Like, of the 7 guys we're looking at that we got to pass, we had no problem at running him on the prelim night. But I could easily, I thought he also did a great job leading up to the feature in the prelim night. And he still didn't do a bad job in the prelim night. And he's our hardest, when we're looking at our guys that we've got to get by, he's our hardest one to say how he's going to do. Because he might just take off on the bottom and be really, really good. He might just take off and be really, really good. And if he faded into the field to 11th, I wouldn't be surprised either. He's our guy, when we're trying to picture how we going to do this, what's our pathway for us to get in. He's the guy that I think is the hardest. So I think that's a great question. Dom is the king of his fan club because he's predicted that Wyndham would have a phenomenal year. So what's your answer, Dom?
Man, it's tough to say. I think it's all going to depend on the like we had said earlier how important that first corner is, that first lap is. When you're starting on the pole, I think it's more important to know like once you get into traffic, how's your car in dirty air? Like I would imagine he's going to probably run top two, top three at the worst, at least until you get into traffic where you have to start changing lanes. I think that will be the telltale for him. I think he'll probably start off pretty good, pretty strong, but then it's going to be once you get into traffic and the lap counter starts to click down that will really tell the story of Chris Wyndham's Knoxville Nationals. And I think it'll be the same story with Sam. I think Sam has to have a good start. He needs to be at least in sixth after the first lap, and hopefully in fifth. And then the challenge of keeping the good guys from Friday night behind you, as well as trekking forward and trying to make something happen with somebody in that top four. But yeah, I think I really do think that Chris Wyndham makes it in. It's going to be later in the B main that we're going to find that out, but I do believe that Chris is going to find a way in.
And my thing for him
So
is if he leads lap one, he's probably going to make it. Like I think he's got Brent Marks beside him. I think if he's good enough that he
Yeah.
beats Brent Marks on lap one, he's probably good enough that he is one of the top four cars.
Yep, and he has the best looking race car.
It's pretty elite, but
I agree.
I just feel like we got way too many split cars and we got way too many guys that went with the metallic. I think Jimmy Light's got the best car.
Yeah, Jimmy Lights looks the best on camera too. I think and that thing really pops.
You were
But
going to
back
say
to
something,
Wyndham,
Steve? Yeah.
yeah, back to Wyndham. I moved him up pretty high. Originally when I do these projections, I kind of just group everyone in certain mains and then kind of dig at it from there. But so like originally I had Wyndham kind of low, like kind of like front of the C, and then once I went back and looked at Eldora and looked at his numbers, he was consistently like one of the top 10 best cars at Eldora at the Kings Royal and Joker's Jackpot. And I don't think anyone would have realized that because he wasn't near the front at all. But he, I think, left there with like an average finish of 14.5. And, with everyone having problems and issues all throughout the week, like that was easily one of the best on paper. So I moved Wyndham up pretty high into my rankings and then ended up putting him in the B. Um, and I wouldn't be surprised if he made it. But what I've noticed about him this weekend, I think it's going to be super track dependent on what the track looks like in the B, because it does seem like Wyndham can go in there and hit the bottom and make a ton of speed, but then the next lap it seems like he'll miss the bottom and scrub all that speed he just gained back off. So, like you said, if he beats Marks right off the start, I kind of think he'll be in good shape. But if Marks and McFadden get a jump on him, like I think he's in big trouble.
Yeah.
We have someone asking how Justin Whittle is doing. I haven't heard anything. Master Gas or Steve, that is one of your boys. You're always
It's
you're
one of the
always
guys that
pushing
I'm
him.
shouting out all the
Yeah.
time. I am pushing him. I haven't heard anything. I will say that I think out of like the top 10 worst crashes I've seen in the last 3 years, I feel like he's been in three of them. He's had definitely a huge rough stretch. Um, he definitely got in a really nasty crash at Port Royal. I think it was maybe at the beginning of last year or towards the end of 2023. But I haven't heard anything. I hope he's doing all right because he's definitely taken some big spills.
We've got the next comment, which Todd says, I wish the 69K was there. I was talking to Sam about this last night. He's my biggest surprise that they're not there. Obviously, there's details on that team that we just don't know. They're getting older. You just don't know the travel details. But I just feel like it's such easy money for them if they come here. Like Dom, you've got a pretty good idea. Like if you make the Knoxville Nationals, like your pay is well worth the trip, and I think we'd all agree, unless you got a hot take, that 69K would be in that A main. Sam said he feels like they're not as tough as they
Yeah,
were last year, but I think we all agree they might not be, but they're still going to be in that A main. So it surprised the hell
yeah,
out of me that, not surprised the hell out of me. I'm surprised they're not here just in terms of like, I feel like this race is free money for them.
yeah. No, I agree. But then again, I guess I just don't know how they travel. You know, I mean, if they're bringing 15 people and you know we're getting hotel rooms on the way, I mean, it could be a $15,000, $25,000 trip. I mean, if you're, you know, it could be even more than that. Honestly, if anything goes wrong, so I could see the risk versus the reward if they didn't have the right guy to drive the car. You know, maybe it's just like, hey, you know, we're not 100% sure with, you know, wanting to take that risk. I mean, I don't really know. I would have wanted to go, but I'm also not 150 years old, so I'm pretty eager to do things like that. Where you know those guys don't really have anything to prove. They've been on the front row. They've kind of done what they needed to prove that they're good. But man, I'd be trying to find a way to make it there. And you know, it's a bummer that they didn't. But I guess there's always next year. I don't know. I wish 69K was always there.
So Jake asked, can Donnie make it? Again, as I've told you, we've poured over that B main lineup a million times. And when we were looking at it, we were like, okay, the guys behind us aren't crazy scary. Like Dietrich's passed us earlier in the week in a heat. I want to say we started in the same row as Dietrich in the prelim feature or right around him and had no issues really with him the whole night. So Dietrich's probably 50-50. The other guys are probably good, but they haven't shown the speed. Getting that lineup after they did the A main last night and seeing Donnie start 11th was not a great feeling in terms of now there is a guy coming from the back who I do think is going to get to fourth in 22 laps.
And
Uh,
the angry Macri.
yeah. Where's Macri actually starting this mess?
14th.
That's doable too. Like when they added those 10 cars, the whole dynamic of the B main shifted for us where it's like, okay, this isn't like being honest, we're looking at it and we're going, we have no clue what Jack Anderson's going to do. We have no clue what Linton Jeffrey's going to do. And then
Or
it's like
Wyndham.
there's five cars. I'm including Wyndham in this, where it's like we got to pass one of these five cars, and that seemed a lot more doable than when you added like Shots and Macri, and all of a sudden that just
Yes.
raised the price of poker there. So yeah, I think that I do think Donnie gets one of those four spots, 22 laps, time to get there. And the thing that I think is going to help Wyndham is the B main generally still has a lot of grip around the bottom. I think that's going to help Wyndham a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
Steve, let's see. Do we have any other? Jarrett wants you to pay your phone bill, Dom. Uh, Jimbo asked who are the transfers tonight. I think I kind of broke it down there. There's five guys starting in front of us that are tough, and there's two that are coming that I basically think there's about eight guys that should be in the A main out of this B main. Uh, Usually it always works
I
out. You
think
see
the
the front.
guy
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say I think the guy I'm most confident in the top four right now is McFadden. I just think starting on the outside, I think he can get a good start, and that car's been really fast. I don't think anyone who transferred, like Persley and Torgerson, have both been really fast, but I don't think that they're going to be able to pass cars like that in the B main. Like their speed has all been in kind of time trials and in not dirty air. So I think they'll struggle to get to the front. I really like that outside lane. Like it's Marks, McFadden, PPM, and Zierfoss, but I do think that Sam has a pretty good chance, like you were saying. So.
What was
You
I
know,
going to say
one thing
about
I
that?
wanted to touch on before I catch my flight, but is like when we look at the top 24 tonight, I think it's important to recognize there's two guys that would have been in the show instead of two guys that are in, and that's Tyler Courtney and Aaron Reitzel. I mean, those two guys would have made the Knoxville Nationals. So there are two guys that basically got a little bit luckier with not having to race those two guys this week. And, we're seeing, whoever those two are going to be is going to be two guys that we haven't decided yet, but two guys definitely wouldn't have made it had those two guys been there.
Yeah, and then the other thing I was going to say off what Steve said, to me, the guy that is the most safe lock is Marks. Brent Marks doesn't miss the Knoxville Nationals. He's getting in. He like, I just, uh, he hasn't been lights out, but the guy just is. He's never slow. I feel like he's money in the bank to get out of the B. I think
Absolutely.
McFadden's likely to be the just have flat out speed, but I don't see a world where the race happens normal and Brent Marks doesn't get out of that deal, especially starting second.
Yeah.
Let's see what we
I
got
agree.
here. If it rains, do you think this will affect conditions where the track won't be as good? No, I don't. This is probably a Daryl who's in Knoxville answer. The rain that is supposed to happen in the morning is not supposed to be like tragic at all. The key to basically tonight, looking at all the weather reports around here, is we just have to get the feature in. If the rain hits, we're not racing tonight. It's one. The last I looked, it's 1.27 inches of rain. It's supposed to come around 9 or 10. If that hits, we're just done for the night. Before that, there's not supposed to be rain. That's really like there's supposed to be rain in about an hour or 30 minutes, and I'm looking over at the sky, and it looks like it might come, but it's not supposed to be rain. That's I'm actually outside Sam's motorhome right now. Uh, it does. There's not supposed to be rain that really messes up the track for tonight. And then James,
Hey, boys,
James,
it's been a pleasure. I've got a flight to
yeah,
catch.
yeah,
I'll be seeing you guys.
yeah. I'll talk to you later, big fella. Do you have any other feel free to just run thoughts by me? I'm normally the guy that has to come up with. Do you have any other topics you want to cover?
Yeah, I'm looking at the B main. Kelby Watt was really impressive last night. I thought, um, he's kind of a guy who has a lot of laps around Knoxville and has had flashes of speed here and there, but he really impressed me last night. I think he did benefit from a good pill draw, but I do think that what he had to go to the rear of the feature, I think, at one point, and came all the way back up to the top 10, or at least he started towards the rear and made it back to the front. So I thought I was really impressed with Kelby Watt last night.
He's a guy that I just find so inconsistent. Like I think back to his time in the Bill Rose car, and it's like I think he had a top 10 run at Williams Grove, or looked really good at Williams Grove, and then like one night later you can see him miss the show. Uh, I don't have a great take on him just because I do. Other than that, I do think he's uh, inconsistent. So we got some questions here. Dom, do you have plans to come out to the Nationals next year? That's hard for Dom because usually he takes off the 2 weeks before Nationals to go run Summer Nationals. So then his business gets insane. Uh, would Axum have made the show in his own car? I'll let you answer that one, Master. What do the numbers say, Steve?
The An overwhelming yes. I mean, there's not a ton of data to back it up, but I mean, just from this year and last year, 100%. Like I think he would have been almost in an identical position, maybe 2 or 3 spots further back in points, but I think there was no question that he was going to get in.
Yeah, I think if you get in the Knoxville Nationals in an uncomfortable car, you probably would have made it in your comfortable car, in a car you're
Yeah.
comfortable in. He's always run good at Knoxville. Even like his bad runs, I don't think are really bad runs compared to most people. I think he easily would have gotten in 27. Mac wrote, "What's the deepest anyone's come from to win the Nationals?" I want to say that was 21st Donnie Shots from the B. I believe he's the only guy to win from the B off the top of my head. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, Schuhart went to second, 3 years ago, I want to say, or I think Schuhart went from B to second. Yeah,
And gravel went 22nd to second, but I believe there was also a cone that got tossed along the way there that maybe should have ended that, but that didn't change the fact that he had the speed. I do think there's a lot of years Donnie literally could have won from last. I remember the first nationals I made with Sam. No, the second one I made with Sam was in 11, and we started, I want to say, 14th or 15th, and Donnie started right behind us. And I don't think he had the lead at the break, but he might have had the lead at the break. And I think that night you could have started him 24th, and he'd have been a handful. Although Shane Stewart, who came from 16th that year in the Rockstar Drink car, probably would have argued that pretty hard. But yeah, 21st when shots won from the B, I believe, is the furthest anyone's come. Uh, Probably the most impressive nationals to me in terms of that didn't end up in a win. It would have been Wolfgang in 90 when he came from the D main to finish fifth. That's probably the most impressive. That
I wasn't
probably would
born
have
for that.
won that. Yeah, he probably would have won that year. No, you can't even really say that. But Wolfgang from the D is probably the most impressive charge there's ever been. Uh, I'm trying to think of the last few charges you've really seen. Like gravel's probably the most impressive one, 22nd second. Even though half the fans right now don't want to hear that. Jimbo said Kinzer did it from 14th once. That was actually super interesting. You were still a baby then if you were even born, but that year was really interesting because he was in the Quaker State car and he had just taken Scott Gherkin from Carl Kinzer. So those teams, hope I have this right. I know this happened. I think I have the timing right. Those teams did not like each other at the time, and Steve came from 14th to take the lead from Mark and win that nationals. So if I believe that was when they were still pretty pissed off at each other. I think it might have even been the first nationals they raced against each other after years. So that one's pretty epic, and that year was actually right around the fence, or as around the fence as Knoxville gets. It was pretty impressive watching Steve make that charge. Uh, doesn't look like we have any new questions that I haven't read. Uh, you gotta have any other things you want to discuss?
I don't think so. I was just looking to see who the hard charger was last year. It was Corey Day. Started 11th, finished third.
Yeah, last year was a very
So
weird racetrack. Most people were basically forced around the top. So I guess we'll get to the obvious question then, which is I'm gonna do two questions for you. By the numbers, who wins this race, and anecdotally, who do you think wins this race tonight?
historical numbers. I mean, it's Larson. He's going to win the race. If we're talking about this year, it's still Larson, but in a bigger sample size. Rico is pretty much identical to him. It wouldn't shock me at all if Rico got it done tonight. I just think it's so hard to bet against the 57. I I I want Rico to win tonight. Honestly, just I think he deserves it. But outside, I do think that there is a small percent chance that Ryan Timms can legitimately win this race. The data says that he's very consistent, even when he doesn't start up front. He's making his way to the front, or even when he doesn't win and he starts towards the front. He's not losing a ton of positions either. So I do think he has the car. I don't know. You know, I guess if you want to, split the race in two 25 lap features, then I think that's a better path for Tim's to just kind of do it mentally for him, because 150 lap race, I don't know if I'm confident that Ryan Timms is going to put together 50 clean laps. But if we're talking 225 lap races, we've seen him do it all year long. So
Guy asked what's happened to Craig Kinzer. I figured he'd at least get a ride for the Nationals. Craig's a weird one. I
yeah,
feel like I talked to Craig like 5 years ago. I remember it. It was at Williams Grove, and he basically told me they were out of money and they were done. and then he raced for like 2, 3 more years. Uh, Probably, if you got the real answer, he just got sick of the money it took, and probably got when you don't have the money, it really adds to like your workload. And he's probably, in all honesty, burned out just after years and years and years of trying to take an underfunded team and racing. Jeff says Logan is a guy not really being touted to win the Nationals. Not publicly, but I think I said in my prediction he would run second last night. Sam and I, low key, when we talk, we're just waiting for Logan to win one of these. I think when you talk about like, will Kyle Larson win? I think there's only like a few select guys that can pass Kyle Larson at Knoxville, and I think Logan Schuchart is one of them. I think they can get their car to where they can actually truly drive by Kyle Larson. I don't think there's many more guys you can say that about. I think you could say Rico right now. I think you could say Corey Day, not based on anything other than that he's Corey Day. And after that, I think the list gets pretty short. What are your thoughts on Logan?
I think this is the best chance he's had to win probably ever. I, I I do think he does have a chance. I think Carson Busita's the other one, like with Tim's, Larson, Rico, like and Logan. Honestly, those guys are really the only guys I do think have a chance. I do like Logan's chances this year more than I ever have. Honestly, I think ever since he won the Eldora Million, I think we kind of expected him to just keep winning like that, and eventually maybe win the Nationals, and he's kind of struggled recently at Knoxville. And it hasn't been struggles where he's finishing in the back. He's just not finishing on the podium. He's not winning races. But, this year he started off, I think he finished fourth when the Outlaws were there at the beginning of the year. Like, he was pretty quick. And then, from what I've seen from him this weekend, I do think that he does have an outside chance to win this race.
Yeah, I think it's even better than an outside chance. I never watch his car at Knoxville and think, man, that thing's not good. His car always looks good at Knoxville. I feel like he hasn't done the best job positioning himself in A mains, and some. I think last year that was draw. Uh, and this is what I talk about when I have my battles of the format. Is like people go, oh well, it all works out, and it's like I don't think it worked out for Logan Schuchart last year, and I think it was last year where the draw killed him. But yeah, I think to me, Logan is my third pick to win behind Rico and Larson. Like, I got Larson to win, then Rico, and then I got Logan. But I think the way the race plays out, I think Logan might even run second. But that's just based on lineup
Yeah,
and how
I think Logan could definitely run second.
Unless we get many more questions, I think we'll wrap this up fairly soon. Uh, Last thing I'll ask you is, what should we look for tonight? What are some things we should be following?
I mean, Donnie shots, obviously, just to see, if the streak continues. I think with the rain, and like you said, it might not be the worst rain in the world, but I do think like last year we saw the E, the D, and even the C be one lane tracks. So I don't think we're going to see a big soup run. It just doesn't happen. Like, everyone always talks about it like it happens all the time, and it really doesn't. If there was a soup run, I think it's Kerry Madsen coming from the C, just because of the speed he's had. Um, and then I think you really just have to pay attention. Like, the B main, I mean, is sometimes the best racing of the night. So I think Parker Price Miller is one to watch in the B main. I think they've been really fast. They have speed. I think they could get in. I think you pay attention to Sam. He was really good in his prelim A main. Past cars that passed him, he passed them back. You rarely ever see that. So I think that tells you that, Sam's comfortable right now. And then obviously Donnie and Macri behind Sam. Like, I just think Macri's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. He's coming off the Kings Royal. He, obviously wanted to follow that up with a good Nationals, and it's just I don't think he's doing anything wrong. I think he's literally just been a victim of so many different things, and like he's just stuck where he is in the B main. But I do think there's a legitimate chance that we could see Macri get in there too. So that's what I'm paying attention to tonight.
Jake just brought up what I was about to ask. Where do we see Gravel getting from 16?
Could see. It's so racetrack dependent for me, but I do think, yeah,
In a
I do think
normal
that
in a
with as good
normal
as the
racetrack, nothing crazy. Where do you think he's getting?
third, I think
Yeah,
he could get to third.
I think
Um,
that's pretty reasonable. Yeah,
yeah,
elaborate on that.
I just think it's not that it just depends, like because like what we were just talking about with Logan. I think Sam said yesterday that he thinks the 41 is really good, and I agree with him too. So then you add in Rico and Larson to that. Those are four guys who are really good. Is Gravel really going to pass all four of those guys? Probably not. But I could see him passing one or two and getting there on the podium.
Yeah, well, you're actually touching on an observation I've had about Knoxville just from my experiences in the A main. The years Sam and I won the A main, won the A main. The years Sam and I made the A main, when we go back and look at it, we did not get passed by a car all weekend. Like in those two nights, like leading up to the final in the A main, we did not get passed by a car all weekend. Take your pick, whoever you want to throw in. And then in the A main, we were like a 14th, 15th place car. So, like, when we talk about someone making a charge, he's charging by guys that literally haven't been passed all weekend. And sometimes I think that gets lost. Like, once you're into that A main and you're passing guys, like I say, these are guys that have not had even a contender pass them all weekend. Usually it's they've started eighth and moved forward. Usually when you're looking at A main guys, they've not been passed all week, and that's something I think gets really underrated. Uh, Jimbo pointed out that Kyle Larson's led the last 100 laps. I really am curious to see how he runs this race, but I feel like he's there early. And I do think you're the second guy to say to me, and I think it was Dom yesterday or Sam yesterday, the Tim's running 25 versus 50 laps thing, I think, is very interesting. Like, people think he could win because of the split, but there's no one that seems to think he would win in a 50 lapper, which I find interesting. And I see the logic behind it all.
No, I mean,
But I also,
I think
to
this split benefits him just because of how hard he drives,
yeah,
and it's like, I mean, he might be in more danger of using his stuff up compared to all the veterans in the field, honestly.
yeah, like his pathway to me to leading to winning the 50 lapper is just that, is him being an animal and getting like 7 lap cars between him and second. That's in the 50 lap version. That's his way. He would have to do it, I think. I do this a lot in betting. Yeah, yeah. You have to look at like what's a guy's pathway to actually winning the race, and for him in a 50 lapper, it's with no stop. It's he has to just gap himself with lap cars, take advantage of his strength, which is passing cars, and yeah. So I think that's about all we got. I'm looking forward to tonight. I do think we get this race in. I think Knoxville will make enough adjustments and pick up enough speed. Uh, we just got a comment here. Who are your guys that are on alien speed right now? I think you're starting in the top 10. You have alien speed. I mean, that's the like I say. You haven't been passed all weekend. You're a rocket ship. Uh, I mean, anyone in the top 10. Larson, Rico, those are the two that stand out to me with alien speed. I don't know what you think, Steve, but I'm guessing you're pretty close.
I mean, I've been impressed with Sheldon. Sheldon had a little more speed than I thought. I didn't think he would have any issue making the A main, but him being he's fifth. I think he's starting fifth, so I did not think he'd be up that high. And um, honestly, I think Brad Sweet is in a really good position too. I don't know if he has the car to win it, but I do think that 49 looked the best it has at Knoxville in a couple years the other night. So
Jeff just asked if Sam makes it to Oshweekend in September. As of right now, Sam is going to Oshweekend in September for the Northern Nationals. It's usually 30,000 to win. I think we're actually getting some pretty different cars down there. It sounds like Jeff West is going to take that car that what's his name? California drives the Joel Myers Jr. I don't know if Joel Myers is coming, but it sounds like the Jeff West car is coming. I've heard rumors of other decent guys, so the Northern Nationals should be pretty decent. But I think that's all we got. We did an hour and 15, and I'm starting to get spit on, so it sounds like that morning rain is coming. And yeah, we'll just see how this goes. And it should be interesting. Thanks for doing this.
thanks, Daryl.